A new series? Hell yeah!
Yeah.
What's going on, gangsters? Movie John here with the new series. And I just thought about it last night after I got off doing that funny live stream that we did last night. If you didn't catch that, go check it out. It's pretty funny at times. Took a little while to get started, but I think we did like an hour and 20 minutes. And we had some funny stuff on there that we talked about wrestling. And of course we talked about movies and stuff like that and other things. But yeah, check that one out if you haven't seen it already. But this is called Toy Stories. Yeah, baby. Just mainly me talking about stories about toys when I was a kid and my memories and stuff. Sorry, I had to take a little quick drink. But yeah, Toy Stories. This first episode has got to deal with something that I loved when I was a kid. I had a lot of them collected, and I wished I wouldn't have got rid of them. 2 different times I got rid of them. I can't kick myself now because the prices went skyrocket. But you know, here in the last 2 years, I've been getting back into wrestling figures and stuff. Mattel makes some great figures and stuff now. They're a lot different from where they were back in the day. They have all that movement and all that crazy stuff now. Back then they were just big and rubber, and if you know what I'm talking about, yeah, we're talking about the LJN toy company that made wrestling superstars. Now back in the day, man, when these first came out, they didn't have a whole lot of competition, you know. Remco did have the AWA ones out and all that cool stuff, and I had a few of them too, but LJN was my favorite because I love the WWF. I remember getting my ring for Christmas first, and I had, I think 4 wrestlers I remember getting. My mom got me Junkyard Dog, I had the Big John Stud, Nikolai Volkov, and the Iron Sheik, and I think I had Roddy Piper too. Yeah, I think that's the first ones that I remember getting with my ring and everything. And my buddy Matt that I grew up with, he had a ring too, and he had quite a bit of wrestlers too. And after it was all said and done, at one time I think I had around 45 of them. Damn, I wish I'd have not gave them to my damn cousin. I gave them to my cousin like an idiot, and who knows what happened to them. A few years later, I tried to see if he could find them, and God knows what happened to them. They probably went to the landfill somewhere. It pisses me off. But if you're into wrestling figures and collecting your stuff, you know they went from I think 84 up to about 89. Then, of course, 1990, Hasbro took over, and they got the little dudes, and I never did buy none of them when I was a kid. At that time, I was kind of getting out of wrestling, and I guess I just thought I was too old, and I really wished I would have kept buying and collecting and kept all these years, because they would have been sweet. I'd have had a hell of a collection. But a few years later on, after divorces and having kids and all that crazy stuff, I ended up getting back into it around, I think it was around 2002, 2003, and back then you could find the LJN wrestling figures, the wrestling superstars I should say, you could find them at flea markets for $2 and $3, real easy and cheap. They were everywhere at the time, and at that time, you know, for probably maybe almost 2 or 3 years, I was doing a lot of flea marketing. I was selling on the side and everything, and I got a bunch of them, and at one time I got all the way back up to about 40 some. Yeah, and I also started collecting the Hasbros, and at that time they were dirt cheap too. You could find them for $1.50, sometimes $2 or $3 at the most. I mean, and I ended up getting up to about 60 of them, and I think there's around 105 or 106 if I'm mistaken. But at that time, man, I got up to around 60 some of them. And then after so long, I would see the same ones at the flea markets and stuff. So I ended up going to eBay to get a few and had to pay a few more dollars. But still, yet, not that much. You look on there nowadays, some of the ones that I had that I only paid a few bucks for, they're going for $40, $50, $60. It's crazy because, you know, when they introduced the retro line out now, it's, I guess, gained more popularity to go back and start collecting them guys. And a lot of people love them as their favorites. But you know me, growing up, I loved the wrestling superstars. Yeah, they were big, they were heavy, some of them. They didn't really do a whole lot of movement. You just had to have imagination, brothers. And imagination is what me and my buddy had. And we did great at that. And we had our own shows. We took them bad boys outside on the sidewalks. We had all kinds of crazy matches and stuff. We had WrestleManias, we had SummerSlams. We did commentary, both of us talking and playing and fighting, and I would do a show, he would do his own show. We had storylines going on, buddy. We did a little bit of everything. We had a hell of an imagination. That's why them wrestling figures that I grew up with, the wrestling superstars, were my favorite and first thing really I ever collected as, you know, a collector when I was a kid. Other things came and went. I got a few Turtles. I got a few G.I. Joes. I didn't really want to keep, you know, I just wasn't into it where I wanted a ton of them. Now, my buddy Matt did. He had a bunch of G.I. Joes. He had a bunch of Turtles, all that crazy stuff. I wished I would have bought more of that stuff, but our main focus was on them wrestling figures. And the funny thing is, nowadays, they have so many of certain stars. I mean, there's probably, I don't know how many John Cena's there is out there, but back in the day, you had one figure. Every once in a while, some of them did have two figures, and I think they only had like 7 or 8 series. Nowadays, they're already up to like 100 with the Mattel, and some of them, they just putting them out like crazy now because they're real popular. But at that time, they usually only had one of them, and if you were real popular, like Hulk Hogan, I think they ended up having 2 or 3 different ones of his. One of his I really wish I'd have kept. It was that red and white one. That one, oh man. The Holy Grail was the last series. I think that was series 9. You had the Ultimate Warrior, and that one's really hard to find, and a few other ones that's in that line's crazy. But by that time I was out of it and just didn't get it. I had that Hulk Hogan one. I think it was the only black carded one I had. But that Ultimate Warrior, I seen one like near mint for like $700 online. That's just crazy. So for the wrestling superstars, I'd say that is probably the most expensive one that you'll find. Like I said, I collected a little bit of the AWA made by Remco. And funny thing is now, since I got back into collecting, I've got quite a bit of them already up there. I think I got like 12 or 14, something like that. And they're kind of like my favorite to collect right now because they actually had clothes and stuff. Some of them you can find like that. And there wasn't a whole lot of them, but they're pretty fun to collect. Now, I only got one LJN. Well, like I was saying, when I did, let me speed back a little bit. When I started getting back into collecting again, and I bought all them around 2007 or 8, somewhere around there, maybe 9 at the most, I sold them all off. I sold them on freaking eBay. And I had about 40 some more of the LJNs. I had almost every one that I had when I was a kid, and I might have got a few different ones that I didn't have when I was a kid. And I sold them off in a big lot to somebody in freaking Greenland. I think it was Greenland or Iceland, up north there. Jesus, why did I do that? And then the Hasbros, I sold them all as one big lot. I remember selling all 60 of them for like $140. And at that time, I thought that was something. Hell, I could probably get 500 nowadays. And like an idiot, I quit collecting. And I got into other things and collected. Then I got out of all that collecting and just said, I'm going to collect comics and movies. And then 10 years later, I got out of comics. Then I got back into freaking figures and stuff, and wrestling figures in the last year or 2. So, who knows? I only got one LJN right now, and that's the Roddy Piper one that I found real cheap at a flea market here a few months back. But I definitely want to get back into getting them. But I want them in pretty decent shape. They're kind of hard to find in real good shape now. A lot of them are tore up and beat up and marked up real bad. But if it's something really rare like the Ultimate Warrior, I don't care if he ain't got no paint on him at all. I'm buying that bitch. But yeah, if you collected the wrestling superstars as a kid like I did, and the cool thing is, I forgot to talk about this. They came with little posters in the bottom. And the bottom had their name, and it said free poster, and they rolled out. I don't remember what size they were. They were pretty small. And in the last 2 years, I did get on eBay one time. You can find them still. And some people has kept them. I had a bunch of them, and guess what I did? I taped them on my freaking door, and then I ended up tearing them off and ripping them up, throwing them away like an idiot. Oh, Jesus. Why? Why couldn't I have the brain I have now back then and kept this stuff? I'd had a hell of a collection. But I did buy Miss Elizabeth. I was thinking about just getting on certain ones that I really liked, and I wanted a Macho Man. He's kind of hard to find. And I did find a company that actually reproduces them and makes them new. And I'm kind of leery about that. I like to have the real deal, but you know, they're pretty cheap. I think they're only $10. A place called Hasbro Maniac, I think it was called. They have them on there, so check them out. Type them in, look them up on the internet. They're on Instagram too, but their store is, you got to go to the link on there or whatever. But I thought about buying one. I think they're actually made a little bit bigger too. And they said they're real high glossy paper and stuff, so might have to do that. But this is the first episode of Toy Stories. I hope you enjoyed my toy story about the wrestling superstars from the 80s, made by LJN. At that time, they were the shit. Till next time.